Have you ever been alone in a place that seems asleep and yet feels like it's watching you? That's what it's like at the Crestwood Mall. It's a sprawling, concrete beast belly down amidst miles of pine forest, a relic of a time when shopping wasn't an activity conducted through screens and buttons. Most people, I guess, have forgotten it exists. But I can't. I work here. Every night from 11 to 6, I'm its keeper, as much as anyone could be said to babysit something that feels aware. The job should be simple, despite its isolation. A little walking, a lot of sitting, mostly keeping vandals or teenagers looking to cause a scene out of places they shouldn't be. And yet, I was warned on my first day, though, with that kind of grim humor older guards used to spook the new blood. "We've got rules here to follow, Manny," they'd nodded solemnly. "You do follow them, don't you?" At first, I laughed it off, thinking it was one of those initiation rituals guards dream up to deal with the endless, creeping silence. But then they handed me a laminated card. 15 rules printed on it in bold. "Keep it on you," was all they said. I pocketed it and promptly forgot about it for a few nights while I got to grips with the job. But then, each night, I started feeling those eyes, or the memory of them, brushing against the nape of my neck whenever I passed certain corridors. I guess it's easy to dismiss intuition until you're there. Alone. The mall feels enormous after sundown, its stores locked tight, display mannequins encased behind glass like sinister statues caught in mid-pose. It's easy to get lost in the echoing clang of my own footsteps on the tiles, but how could I be lost when my path never changes? In the shadows cast by the emergency lighting, the depth of the place seems to bend and shift. And then there are the rules. The back entrance, the one we lock at 11:15 p.m., must remain locked. After securing it, you don't open it again until your relief arrives in the morning. That's Rule 1. Simple, practical. The kind of logical precaution you'd expect anywhere. Then they get odder. For instance, at exactly midnight, I have to turn off the escalators. This one I understand. It saves on power and stays within budget guidelines. But around 12:30, you check, then double-check the mall's public restrooms, making sure each is empty and their lights are off except one. The first stall light of the second-floor men's room must always remain on. It seems nonsensical and out of place unless you consider that shred of superstition. Something apart from our mundane existence, nipping at reality's heels. I didn't pay terrible attention to them at first. Rules 3, 4, 5, they blurred in my head with cafeteria codes for non-existent regular occurrences, until I started noticing small anomalies. Little instances that left me wondering if I really was alone. The power drink chillers would hum back to life despite being cut off from their switch. Shoe boxes neatly aligned at shoe shops would topple when I passed, only to be upright again, straightened as if by invisible hands when I looked back. So one slow night, more out of boredom than anything else, I humored those watch-your-step notions the older guards whispered about. I opened the card again, scanning each rule with eyes now mildly receptive to what I'd once found ridiculous. Rule number 6 continues to catch my attention. Never mop the floors between 1:00 a.m. and 4:00 a.m. I had seen our janitor ignore it, chiding the importance of clean floors, speaking with pride until eventually she took ill and wouldn't return to work. Neither did she reach her family. I shrugged it away casually then, feeling the damp air grow sparse with our nicotine breaks. Now, however, the idea breathes down my neck, lusty and unwelcome. That's when I started taking the card seriously. Most rules seem designed to maintain the semblance of function, something normal that belies the eerie stillness beneath. They calm me though, except one, rule number 9, the one I didn't know how to obey because it started and ended with variables beyond logic. Don't make eye contact with yourself in any mirrored surface after 3:00 a.m. Besides sounding impossible, it's irrational, just reflections in glass. Right. Problem is, reflections didn't feel like that once I, inadvertently, did catch my own gaze late into one narrow morning. And in that flicker, Something lingered staring back, something amused, something that wore me as a hobby. Which brings me to the nights that followed. Silence wraps around me when it's thickest, just before dawn, when the mind's television static roars loudest. A few nights later, I heard the soggy, draping sound of footsteps not in sync with mine. It holds to little comfort noting incidents where seasoned guards erratically resigned, their hearty jokes reduced to quiet intensity, punctuated by wandering reminders of the rules. It makes ignored. Jing's silent prompts, the ones painted by shadows dragging themselves tentatively from corners knowing too much. At least knowing enough. Yet I abide by courtesy that perhaps they stay honest around here. Spirits unnamed living side by side who echo delicacies of old bones and new birds. It becomes a new creed, the helpful guide, the pocket swath, tethering me as custodian when serving my shift patter. A palpable frequency you dare not question, lest you seek answer from empty vessels questioned through flimsy fleshed walls, easily broken by what knows the cracks. Understanding it is like living with a roomful of memories you've heard about, but never internalized. And still, clinging to the raw fear that there lies meaning outside perception in those cleverly inane thoughts shifting the landscape, an intersection between mundane shadows concealed under a superstitious sky. It takes a wise second to peer forward. None slip, but some remain, seeping undefined substance into dreams fraught beneath. My nights at the Crestwood Mall had started to follow a new rhythm, one dictated by those bizarre rules and the unspoken agreement that something else roamed its dim corridors. Every shift began with a tightening in my chest, a warning bell that tolled with each echoing step I took past the hollow food court and its vacant storefronts. Even the old arcade, swallowed by silence, seemed to exhale a breathless warning in the form of the flickering bulb above its entrance. One night, a particular sound stopped me cold, a soft rustle, a whisper of movement hanging just beyond the reach of my flashlight's beam. I had learned to distinguish its footsteps from my own, to tell the difference between normal silence and the kind that wrapped around me like a shroud. This sound wasn't a drift of air or the settling of the building's bones. It was deliberate, following a cadence that soaked my skin with cold sweat. The rules, they insisted on acts of avoidance, looking past reflections, never acknowledging whispers from corners. But here, out in the open, as the mall stretched before me with its long, yawning shadows, I was forced to engage in a silent, tense showdown. Ignoring the compulsion to turn on my heel, I walked towards the source, my hand a vice around the flashlight. The beam jittered across polished tiles, catching fleeting glimpses of darkened spaces beyond gated store fronts. The sound repeated closer, like a runner on a distant track, thudding closer, but always just out of sight. Rule number 7, never check behind you without backing into a wall first. I found one, cool brick against my back, the reassuring touch of something solid amid the ocean of unease. It happened then, a tiny, fragile noise, a child's giggle, carried by the chill of air conditioning. My breath halted, and for a moment, a cruel second, I was a statue carved from fear. The laughter was infectious, entangling my senses before it dipped into silence. In that instant, I remembered the older guard's addendum to the rules. A child's laugh signals the end of observation for the night. So, against every instinct, I began retreating towards the nearest exit, maintaining my facade of disinterest in what else lurked in the moonlit aisles. The rules were snatching chapters from a horror story, each line an incomplete verse in a rhyme of madness I was forced to repeat. But that childlike giggle, it lingered like a specter, worming into my subconscious, reminding me how little I understood of the interplay between us, invisible and nameless. With days spent in a haze of restless thoughts and nights filled with dread-filled patrols, I was walking through life in blurry slow motion. Sleep became an elusive friend, leaving me caught between waking nightmares. Yet there was a morbid fascination growing in me, a need to understand, to decipher the layers of my fear. So one evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, Painting the world in hues of fire and shadow, I made a decision. I would bring a voice recorder. This second night with my recorder was different. The weight in my pocket was both comforting and foreboding, a silent companion to witness whatever the mall decided to unravel. I repeated the ritual of routine patrol, crossing paths with my own reflection in the shop windows, steering clear of corners where whispers gathered. With every lap around the second floor, I would click the button, breathing life into the device, catching the inexplicable, the unseeable. It was the third playthrough of a loop when I heard it, clear, unmistakable, a whisper threading directly into my headphone. "We see you." 2 words squeezed my heart in a vice grip. Had they always been watching, just waiting for acknowledgement? The thought was a slow creeping dread, swelling into something unbearable. It wasn't until I reached the deserted toy store that I allowed myself to exhale. The store, a shrine of forgotten joy, lay bathed in the sterile glow of Emmer. Gency lights. It was here, through the cracked glass display, that my eyes caught movement. A toy train, its wheels slowly spinning, constructing its path amidst the dust. Unbidden, my flashlight tracked over it only to find nothing, just a stillness that roared with unsaid things. Rule number 10, toys are to be returned to their original place. But what if the toy never left the shelf? What if it moved on the whims of unseen hands? I pivoted sharply, my heart a drum against my ribs. The mall seemed to breathe, a slow suspension of life caught between one moment and the next. I knew then I had to confront this or retreat forever into the suffocating night of the unknown. With deliberate strides, I approached, carefully placing the toy back, whispering an unheard apology. My nights at Crestwood took on a new shade after that. It was as though I lived inside a waking nightmare, straddling the border between 2 worlds. One filled with invisible eyes and disembodied voices, while the other rendered me powerless, caught in the steel trap of fear. The tape recorder was the key, the catalyst, pulling threads through the riddle I had stumbled into. I came to understand that this was not a traditional haunting, tied to death or grief. It was something more primal, deeply embedded in the structure of the mall itself. And it was then that I understood why the rules existed. They were boundaries, a semblance of control in the chaos. Still, I felt an unyielding draw to see it through, to comprehend what moved in the shadows of Crestwood, what claimed it as its own. My investigation, my descent into the unknown, had only just begun, and the mall held its breath in anticipation, hiding truths within its silent roots, yet daring me to unravel them with each night that passed. By my 3rd week at Crestwood Mall, I had come to expect the unnatural, the things that slither under the thin facade of reality when the rest of the world closes its eyes. I was no longer the same person who laughed at cryptic guidelines or brushed off unseen giggles as wind drafts. The rules were now my doctrine, a silent script shadowed by my fears as I patrolled the empty corridors. It was on a Wednesday night that the air changed. It thickened with a sensation I hadn't felt before, as if the very oxygen was laced with intent. The fluorescent lights flickered to a lull, casting the store mannequins into stark silhouettes, eerie sentinels that guarded secrets I was only beginning to understand. It seemed silly to take solace in my flashlight, yet its beam was a lifeline through aisles of lurking darkness. At 2:11 a.m., precisely when the rules warned me to avoid the food court, my curiosity took a damning turn. Despite the rules, or perhaps because of some unnameable pull, I found myself drawn to its heart. The echo of my own footfalls seemed muted, as if drowned by the phantom presence of many who had walked this path before me. The chill grew more visceral, an unwelcome breath that crept into my lungs. I stopped at the threshold, the dim glow of vending machines humming with an almost possessive energy. That's when I heard it, a delicate, rhythmic tapping echoing from the atrium's dull perimeter. Heartbeat pulsing in time with the hollow sound, I moved towards it. My flashlight revealed nothing, yet the tapping persisted, driving my chest tight with anticipation. Turning slowly, I finally saw it, an escalator descending into the basement, a place I never noticed in my rounds. The sign demarcating "authorized personnel only" seemed a lazy deterrent, but then again, the real deterrent lay in the cold, abiding dread whispering at the edges of my rationality. Without a plan, or perhaps possessed by the very madness that leads men to confront their nightmares, I took the first step down. The railing was coated in a gritty dust, each step resounding like a verdict. The air was stale, yet laced with an unspeakable vibrancy, a tense undercurrent of something living and hungry. At the bottom, the darkness opened wide, welcoming me into its silent embrace. Here, the mall's lifeless form took on an almost organic quality, the walls seeming to pulse with every uneven breath. My flashlight flickered, casting fleeting glances at walls marked with faded maps of years past, each room more twisted and labyrinthine than any architectural plan should allow. I felt pulled down an improbable pathway, an unending tunnel whose end could not be sighted. The rules hadn't mentioned this place, yet its existence felt inevitable, a truth layered beneath each cryptic command. The giggle was back now, louder, echoing, an innocent sound woven with threads of mockery and malice. And then it coalesced into something far worse. Words, strung together by a voice both childish and ancient. "They think you're the first." Before I could even process, a gust of warmth enveloped me. My flashlight picked up a shape, a figure drifting just out of reach. It moved with fluid ease, an implication of what once might have been human. My chest tightened as the figure seemed to regard me, unblinking, studying my reaction with an awareness that transcended the bounds of normal perception. "You don't belong," it said. The voice was layered, a simultaneous harmony of despair and resignation. Goosebumps tufted along my arms as the truth thundered in my mind. I wasn't alone, hadn't been alone since I first clocked in, and the mall had never been abandoned. A congregation of unrestful presences, all intertwined with this place, animated by an indescribable malevolence, had been watching all along, waiting. I stumbled backward, my flashlight whipping around wildly, revealing nothing tangible, and yet everything horrific. The warmth faded, replaced by the familiar chill that had first entwined my senses. There was no safe corner in Crestwood Mall, only a dulled reality beneath sharpened shadows. The rules had kept me alive, but not unscathed. Their existence confirmed a history I could not comprehend, a depth of time and lingering grievances carved into the very lifeblood of the structure. There was no banishing the darkness here, only an endless cycle of vigil held by unwitting guardians like myself who could meet neither respite nor release. Retreating from the basement, my legs moved beneath me on instinct alone, the labyrinth tightening behind me with each step away from its lurking revelation. I emerged into the mall proper, the normalcy of closed storefronts like a balm against the recent encounter. Yet the normalcy was an illusion, the tug of horror under my skin a reminder of an inevitable return. As dawn broke and color crept back into the world outside, I stood in the parking lot, shivering. The light only carried a new shade of understanding. There were no isolated events, just layers of a profoundly woven nightmare holding this mall in its twisted embrace. The end was not abrupt, but continuous, a looping thread in a tapestry I could not hope to unravel. I knew I would be back, forever drawn to the echoes of unanswered questions whose answers lay somewhere deep, beyond the escalator, in the very belly of a beast masked as mere retail. I had to tell someone, had to try. But who would believe me when I barely believed it myself? So I recorded it, every word, every strange syllable of that child's laughter, every cold, intent-filled silence, hoping that maybe the truth would ring clear in its raw form. As I drove away, the sunrise at my back, I wondered what would become of those recordings, and more crucially, who would end up taking the next vacancy on the night shift at Crestwood Mall. The thought clung to me like a shadow, promising that none of this was ever truly over, just waiting for the next page of eerie instructions to be read, understood, and inevitably broken.